Hello, everybody. Happy New Year, and I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. I know we did. It was definitely nice to be able to see family and friends over the holidays and reconnect. I hope you had the same opportunity. I took a bit of time, obviously, over the holidays just to kind of relax and take it easy. So, it's been a bit of time since I've actually posted anything, but we're back at it, and it's a fresh year. So, hopefully we'll be able to grow the community more this year. We've been doing really well since summer last year when I started the channel, and there's already quite a following. So I just want to say thank you to all the viewers and subscribers to the channel who made 2025 what it was for the channel at the very least. And, thank you for all my family, friends, and those who are supporting us. It means the world to us. And again, I hope that we can continue building this community. And, I've heard from people from, all across the world, and thank you to those who are following me now and watching. And, I hope we can kind of, again, go through this journey together and kind of, deal with those hard times and try to, be there for each other as a community. Looking back to the ending of 2024 and the very, very beginning of last year, which is 2025, the year last year, it was a lot more, it was a lot different than what I anticipated. So at the very end of 2024, moving into 2025, we thought that the year was going to be absolutely horrible. Looking back to the very ending of 2024 and kind of also like the beginning of 2025, but more the end of 2024, last year was a lot more different than what Megan and I were kind of anticipating. Good things were happening at work. We were going to be family planning for this year, and the year just, it became a lot more different of a scenario than I was expecting because obviously, I have cancer and I wasn't doing well at the beginning of last year. I never expected to be in the scenario that I'm in now, but that's just the straw that I pulled in life. And instead of last year going kind of according to plan, I'll say that loosely, it was a lot more different than I thought, and it became more of a year of survival for me than anything else.
Too old for this shit.
But, looking back now and reflecting on last year, it's a journey that I didn't want to be on, that I'm still on, but, I'm oddly grateful for, the year and, being able to reflect on it and what did go well. I usually do these reflections, like my own self-reflections at the end of every year. This is the first time I'm kind of putting it out there to other people. But, I think it can be good and it's, cathartic in a way sometimes and healthy for you to reflect on how the year went. What was good? What was bad? What do you maybe, hope you could have improved or done differently? I'm not huge on New Year's resolutions. I do have, I guess if you want to call them resolutions for this year, but they're just kind of things that I want to improve upon in my life. That was, it's things that were kind of taken away from me when like my whole diagnosis started, and just a lot of ways my life has changed. I'm wanting to try and shift things back to somewhat of a normal state and just trying to enjoy life a little more than what I did last year. So, without further ado, we'll get started. I have a lot of talking points, so like normal, if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my computer and my notes. But yeah, we'll get through the video, and there'll be quite a bit to talk about. So looking back on 2025, my health states, both physically and mentally weren't in a great spot. At the very beginning of last year, I was battling my meningitis that I had gotten from my first round of immunotherapy, and I've talked about this in another video, but yeah, I wasn't doing super well physically. Like, I was very ill. I was on the steroid prednisone for almost 2 months, and then we started the treatment that I'm on now at the ending of February of last year. So Mentally, I was also not doing well. For most of the year, mentally, I was not doing well. I'd say it started improving towards the end of the year, and right now, like mentally, like obviously, it's not in a great state, but it's a lot better than what it was last year. But physically, it was a tough year physically for me. Having to deal with meningitis at the beginning of the year, side effects from treatment. I'm tired all the time. I have a lot of physical side effects that I have to deal with on a daily basis. So, my health last year wasn't all that great. But entering into this new year now in 2026, I'm definitely in a better physical and mental state starting this year. So that already in itself is a positive. So last January, 2025 was looking a specific way to us, and it didn't really play out the way we thought it would. For one, we had very deep fears and anxieties about starting a new treatment, given the speed with which side effects had started the first time we started. So we really thought like, oh my gosh, like new treatments, what are the side effects going to be like this time? We thought it was going to be very horrible. Like meningitis is one of the rarest and worst side effects you can get from immunotherapy, and that's what I got the first time around. So, of course, going into the second round of treatment, I was like, oh, what am I gonna get, side effects wise, and am I gonna be able to manage it? And it was an interesting year for side effects. They were manageable, but they aren't great, and I still live with them every single day. Beginning the year, I had some anxiety about my work season. So typically with my work, I am on from about March till the end of the year, and then we have about a 3-month break. So I didn't know yet at this time last year that I was not going to be returning to work ever again. At least, for the foreseeable future, I will not be working, just because my, with my diagnosis, it technically counts as a severe disability because of the side effects I have to manage day by day. And it's really hard. It would be very, very hard for me to work a normal job, even if it was working from home. But yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was, panicking a bit about like, how am I going to manage my side effects when I'm at work? And, what's that going to look like? And eventually, obviously, my doctor was like, no, you're not going back to work. And it's like, that's it for you. So I thought that I was going to be working last year, and then I wasn't. And then there was a point earlier in the year where I was like, yeah, maybe I'll return in the fall of 2025.
Right.
Didn't happen because I'm just not going back to work anymore, and that was something that I was worried about going into the new year last year. For how 2025 went, we were really expecting to be in the hospital a lot more through the year. I think if I had to guess, as far as emergency visits go for 2025, I think it was around 3 or 4 times, which obviously is probably more than the typical person, but that was relatively low for me, considering December 2024, for that month alone, I think I was in the ER 4 times. So it was nice not being in the emergency room or department at the hospital a lot last year. When we were thinking and worrying about being in the hospital, it wasn't even like we weren't even like catastrophizing that. So, we weren't like working it up to be more than we thought. Cause I was really, really unwell at the beginning of 2025. Like I was really sick. So at the time it made sense to think like, oh, I'm going to be in the hospital a lot this year, and it's going to be a very, very hard and painful year. But luckily it ended up being better than we expected. What did a typical week look like for me? So, my weeks, at the beginning of the year, I was going to the oncologist more often. Now we're like going every 6 weeks, which is nice. I do my infusions bi-weekly, but my weeks, the way my weeks looks through most of 2025 was actually really boring and mundane because of my side effects. It's being extremely tired and fatigued all the time. I have no energy, and like I'm dealing with stomach stuff and nausea, just a bunch of side effects all the time. And it was, really hard to do a lot during the day. So a typical week for me mostly looks like sitting around at home, watching TV, playing some games, hanging out with our cat here, or like trying to get out for a walk here and there when I can, hanging out with friends when we could. We actually did do a lot more last year socially than we thought we would. Like we got to go out and do for some like camping trips and stuff, some cottages, which we weren't expecting to be able to do at all last year. But luckily with the side effects, again, like they are manageable, but like still it is something that I do have to manage. And there were weekends where we were away and we were doing things where I felt like total crap and it put me on my butt for a day, and there went a day of like my weekend or trip. So, it wasn't completely free of, issues while we were doing these social events, but I did my best, and I made it through relatively unscathed. But with how the weeks went, as 2025 progressed, I became more and more, I don't want to say resistant, but I like don't like going to, I mean, not that I ever liked going to treatment, but like going to treatment it's tough for me these days. Like I don't want to be going anymore. My arms and my hands, they're getting really sore from being jabbed all the time. It's tough when you're getting a needle stuck in your arms and your hands so often for like blood work, infusions, and I'm tired. I'm exhausted of doing these treatments.
I'm tired, boss.
It's just, I don't want to do it anymore, but obviously it is working, so we have to stay on it. But yeah, like my weeks, I'm tired. Like I don't want to go to treatment. Like I don't want to be taking all these medications I'm taking. Like my weeks aren't what I would call fun by any means, or, a full life, if you want to put it that way. It's just a lot of the time I was kind of just here existing. So that's kind of what my weeks look like. Nothing incredible, but I'm hoping to change that a little bit this year. That is one of my big things, is I want to make the best of more of my time this year than I did last year. And, I've been dealing with feeling guilt around not making more of my time. It's something I do talk to my therapist about. And, for anybody struggling with maybe the same thing, it's weird. It's like, I know I don't need to feel guilty about not doing a ton, because obviously given the circumstance I'm in and, the circumstance you're in, we don't have to be able to do a ton. It's okay if we feel tired. But, being raised, as a millennial, and just with like people I've been surrounded by in work scenarios and bosses and stuff like that, I unfortunately, it's kind of ingrained in my head, even though I don't support it or believe in it, that like, oh, I'm being a mooch on the system or something like that, or like I am capable of working, if I'm capable of like doing most normal things, which some days I am, sometimes I'm not, then I should be able to work, but that's not the case, unfortunately. So, and kind of leading into my next point is, how did I get through tough times last year? A lot of that was covered in, coping strategies, that video that I did a few months ago. But how did I get through tough times? I obviously I'm on anxiety and depression medication, so that helps. Talking to my therapist every 2 weeks, that's obviously helped a lot. Trying to get out and do as much as you can, staying busy as much as possible, that definitely helps. But there's no like right or wrong answer to how do you deal with the tough times. Like it's just, you do what is best for you and what you know to be the best method to help yourself get through things. I'm not going to say that there's any kind of right method, or that you should definitely try this, because not everything works for everybody, and you got to kind of try around with what makes you feel good. But it also helps that I have a very big support group, and I have a lot of family and friends that are very, very supportive and care a lot, and I've been able to lean on them when I need to. So yeah, dealing through the tough times, a lot of it is, medication and trying through external methods to try and combat that. But there were a lot of times last year where I just had to take it and get through it and let time take its course. And, it's funny. There's that saying like time heals like all wounds. I don't know if time like will ever like. I'm still grieving a lot of my life and what used to be normal for me and it isn't anymore. And I don't know if time's one of those things that can heal this wound, unfortunately. But in regards to how you get through tough times, like, yeah, like time did help me get through some of the things I was dealing with last year, but it definitely was hard. I will say that. It also helps, with appointments with like at the hospital or treatment. Like our healthcare staff has been nothing but amazing and they've been there every step of the way with us. And, it's such a big thank you to them and everything that they do for us because they've definitely made this journey a lot easier than it might be if you had healthcare staff that maybe aren't the best, which can happen unfortunately sometimes. And of course, this channel and this community, this has kind of helped me process a lot of my own feelings and what I've been going through and connecting with people, who are also going through a similar situation. I just recently had a couple comments from Switzerland that they started following the channel and that they're going through a similar scenario. And, it's so tough to be going through this. So I know how it is. And, I appreciate them sharing that with me and letting me know, the scenario that they're in. But yeah, this community has definitely been helpful in dealing with, my anxiety and stress, surrounding cancer diagnosis and trying to get through things. So again, thank you to the YouTube community and all of you who are watching that are subscribed because it's really made a difference in my life. And I hope I'm making a difference in your life too. Looking back on last year, I think I found a strength that I didn't know that I had. And I don't mean in like a physical strength kind of way that most people would think. It takes, I think, a lot of mental fortitude to get through this. And, there are a lot of days where I didn't have that. And it was harder for me a lot of days. And I found a strength within me for some of those times that really helps me get through things that I never thought that I'd be able to. And, some of the things that I've had to endure over the past, since I had this cancer diagnosis, some of the things I've had to get through, it takes an immense amount of strength. And again, not physical strength, like mental strength. It's something that's you can't prepare for at all. Like it's just you have to deal with it as it comes, and sometimes it's easier than others, sometimes it's harder. And it's important to be strong through all of this. Trust me, I know it's hard. I there's a lot of times when I'm not and I break down, and it's just one of those kinds of things where you deal with it when those days come, and, lean on your family and friends when you need to. But there will be days where you'll be feeling stronger than others and you'll feel ready to tackle those issues that you have and feel better about, your outlook on life or your current situation. But yeah, I definitely think I developed a strength over 2025 that I didn't necessarily have prior to last year. And going into this year, I'm hoping to kind of refine that strength a bit and use it to my advantage and hopefully get through more of those tough times again this year. Hopefully there's not as many tough times, but for when there are, hopefully I'll be able to, mentally again fortify myself against those harder times. So for 2025, like, did my perspective on life change, and like, did things feel different in 2025 than they did in 2024? Yeah, they did. Like, my perspective on life definitely, it was a weird thing. It was like in waves through 2025. Like, The beginning of 2025 was not a good outlook. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I thought the year was gonna be a write-off. I was expecting, life to look a lot more severe than it currently is. I gotta say, all in all, like, it's funny. I have people tell me like, "Oh, you look so well. You seem like you're doing so well," and it's like, relatively, yes, I'm doing well. I'm dealing with a lot of side effects, obviously, and like I have cancer, so like you're as well as I guess you can be given what you are dealing with. But it's yeah, like my perspective on life, like I had a very grim outlook at the beginning of last year, and then we finally got good news in the spring of last year, and then my outlook changed then, and I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe things might not be as bad as I thought they were going to be. We were expecting last year to be horrible, and then it ended up not being so bad, and that really changed how I was looking at my life essentially, because I was looking at my life through a lot of 2024 with a lot of like a doom kind of outlook, very grim, like life is kind of ending. And 2024, the end of 2024 was very bad for that, and the beginning of 2025 was bad for that. But getting through the second half of 2025, I was definitely feeling better about life in general and kind of where things were going given the success of the treatment. So yeah, like my perspective definitely did change from like 2024 going into 2025, and then moving into this year. My perspective is definitely a lot more positive than it has been. Treatment's been working. We've had 3 scans now that have been all positive, and we're hoping that continues. And it's giving me hope for the future. Talking about family planning earlier in the video, that's something that we're seriously looking into now, because we do have to go the IVF route, and we're hoping to kickstart that and get on the wait list, and hopefully, end of this year, maybe 2027 is when we'll maybe be thinking about having a child, and that gives me a lot of hope and positive outlook for the near future at least. So I know it can be really hard to have a good perspective, like, or I guess a positive perspective on life and like a positive outlook on life, but it's it definitely does feel good now that I've gotten to this place, and it does take work to get there, especially if you're not there yet. But I will say, keep working at it, keep doing things that make you happy, try to find joy and positivity from the small things in life. Like, there's not like a lot right now that gives me a ton of joy, but when I get wins, even if they're small wins, I take them and I try to be as happy about them as possible, because you need to have some happiness in your life. You can't just go through grim all the time and not have, an ounce of lights come through in your life. So I highly recommend, trying to find a way to put a positive spin on things in your life, or at least try to find things to put a positive spin on your outlook, because it'll just make you feel better about your situation, and it'll take off a lot of that mental like load and burden that you have from your diagnosis. What have I stopped giving energy to last year that I maybe would have given energy to prior to last year? And I would say a lot of the stuff I don't deal with anymore, as rude as it might sound, is I just don't deal with a lot of like, um, I don't know. Let's say you're having like a conversation with somebody, and it's just like small talk or like fluff, right? Like you just these things just don't matter to me anymore. Like I'm a very introverted person, and I have a hard time, unless it's very close friends and family, like keeping up conversations with people, because I get kind of like nervous and scared of like saying the wrong thing, or not being able to like keep up in conversation, or maybe saying something dumb or awkward. But um, yeah, I'd say I've stopped giving energy to a lot of like, just, I don't want to call them pointless, but you know, conversations and interactions in my life that aren't maybe as meaningful as other ones I would have with other people in my life. That's definitely a big one. I did kind of cut off a lot of communication with people last year. It's not because like I'm upset with anybody or anything like that. I've just been isolating myself a lot over the past couple of years, especially last year. But I do think I've been kind of coming out of that hole a little bit now and trying to make it better. We've kind of already talked about a lot of this through this video so far, but what is, like my new normal that like started with treatment last year, and what does like my everyday life look like? Again, we've talked about it, but my normal everyday now is essentially just dealing with side effects and being at home a lot, and especially now in the winter when it's like all crappy outside. I don't want to be out there. Like I'm just home a lot. So my new normal now is it's a lot of just dealing with side effects, being at home, kind of being bored, living a very boring life.
This bores me.
But again, hoping to change that this year. So again, while I don't really like do New Year's resolutions, I am hoping to improve on things this year and change some things. So for me, like one of my biggest things I want to do is try to be more committed to things. That's a funny one because it's kind of broad, maybe a little vague, but for instance, like plans, like I want to be able to commit to plans more carefree than I did last year, because I went into a lot of plans all nervous that maybe I'd have to go to the hospital where I was, or maybe something bad would happen. And I want to go into this year trying to be more positive and not giving so much time and space to those fears and anxieties. And I just want to be able to enjoy life and live more presently. It was very hard for me to do that last year with that fear on my shoulder all the time. And I really would like to commit to more things and, have a more carefree time, which would be really nice. There's some things that I want to do this year with my life, just to make, again, better use of my time. I want to start reading again this year and reading more. I'm hoping to be able to get into that soon here. I was self-teaching myself the guitar back in like 2018, and I fell off after like half a year, and I want to get back into it. I started again like last year in November for a few weeks, but I dropped off again. Again, low energy. It's hard to, keep up with things, but that is something I want to get back into this year and really start hopefully enjoying again and learning as best as I can. Another thing I kind of want to improve upon is essentially having, I kind of mentioned, the second half of 2025 was definitely better than the first half, and my outlook changed a lot through the year. But I want to be more positive with my appointments and, how things are going in my life. I was so down for so long, and I thought my life was coming to an end, and then we got good news. So I'd like to be more positive this year and just try my best to be a little happier and really enjoy things around me. So again, like while these while these kind of can be New Year's resolutions, it's not like, I don't know, it's not like those classic ones where it's like, I need to go to the gym more. Actually, that is one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to start doing at-home yoga because I need to start moving my body around more. I'm physically quite weak right now, so I do need to get some more activity in my life. And I think just like stretching and doing some like light body weight exercises, I think that can be really beneficial for me and hopefully to my energy levels as well. So that's another big one that I want to kind of get back into this year. It's physical exercise. The last one I want to talk about today is, what do I wish somebody would have told me at the beginning of 2025? And I think Megan and I both agree on this, but it's having, it's having patience in both the good and the bad times. Consistency is not a gift that we often get in life. And if you can lean on your supports, like your support group, friends, or like your family in like the bad times, then when you get those positive times in life, you're going to appreciate them much, much more. You know, there's not a lot of consistency these days in my life, and I do appreciate it when we do get good things now. And that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier. It's trying to appreciate the positive things when they do come around and really taking those wins and, you know, exaggerating that win more than maybe you normally would, because we need these wins when we're going through something like this, because it's you know, it's tough, and with, you know, the mental state you typically have when you're dealing with cancer, any win is a big win. So over the past year, you know, it's been a long road. I'm still processing a lot of my life and everything that I've been going through. I would love to hear from you in the comments. You know, maybe you can tell me what is one thing you're leaving behind in 2025. And maybe what is one thing you're bringing into 2026 with you, or something that you want to change or improve upon this year. Either way, let's support each other. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and hopefully it'll help you maybe reflect on your situation in the year last year. But it's just a little fun activity that I like to do, you know, at the end of every year. I'm so glad to be here with all of you going into this new year. Like always, if you liked today's video, leave a like, make sure to leave a comment down below, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so we can continue growing our community and helping out those that are in need of it. Until next time, take care, everyone.